King Charles has always been known for his sharp eye and unflinching standards, whether in matters of state or his rare candid observations about the world beyond royal walls. Recently, he delivered a revelation that has sent shockwaves through Hollywood, a list of 7 actors he admitted he could not stand. So, was it their arrogance, secret scandals, or private clashes behind palace doors? Insiders claim the room went cold, reputations were shattered, and tempers flared. But which names made the list, and why? Stay tuned. Number 7. John Travolta. At the top of King Charles' meticulously curated roster, this name shines with star power. Yet, to the king, it represents frustration masked by charisma. Travolta's career is glittering, adorned with public charm, box office hits and golden accolades. But Charles is unflinching. Beneath the glamour lies a lack of discipline, a quality he holds sacred above all else. Discipline, the king insists, separates mere celebrities from true artists, and in Travolta, he sees a cautionary example of charm overshadowing commitment. The clearest illustration, Charles observes, comes from Travolta's work on the 1995 gangster comedy Get Shorty.
This man is the man. You understand what I'm saying, motherfucker? He's Mr. Bones, and you speak to Mr. Bones from now on.
Opposite the meticulous Harry Zim, a director within the film's story, portrayed by one of cinema's most dedicated actors. On paper, the pairing seemed inspired. Travolta as the smooth, Miami-based loan shark Chili Palmer, counterbalanced by a seasoned, methodical professional. In practice, however, it became a study in contrasting philosophies: glamour versus craft, casualness versus obsession. One actor approached the work with every ounce of preparation imaginable, memorizing lines, studying cues, and treating the role as an extension of his very being. The other, King Charles notes with a grim precision, approached it with a casualness that bordered on negligence, prioritizing leisure and personal indulgences over the sacred responsibility of performance. Charles recounts a telling early exchange on set. Travolta casually asked about his co-star's weekend. The response, hours spent memorizing 8 pages of dialogue, was met with Travolta's shrug. That's a waste of a weekend. To Charles, this remark epitomized the misalignment of priorities: charm and comfort over focus and preparation. The issues persisted, extending beyond lines to punctuality and on-set attention. Travolta reportedly once delayed filming while trying on tuxedos for the Oscars in his trailer. Vanity and indulgence, the king asserts, are professional betrayals when they interfere with the work. Small tensions compounded. When giant cue cards were used to prompt Travolta during scenes, pointed remarks like, "Right here, John," right at the top of your cue card, cut through the pretense, mockery veiled as instruction, invisible to casual observers, but glaring to those attuned to discipline and dedication.
You'd have ray bones all over your ass, and that's a whole new kind of trouble.
Despite these behind-the-scenes struggles, Get Shorty became a critical and commercial success, earning Travolta a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy. Yet King Charles is unyielding. Awards cannot erase the impression of working opposite a performer whose charm outweighs commitment. Travolta has never publicly acknowledged tension with his co-star, speaking warmly of the film and seemingly unaware, or deliberately silent, about the frustration left in his wake. Meanwhile, the meticulous performer never softened his opinion. Talent is meaningless without preparation, humility, and relentless focus. To Charles, Travolta embodies a troubling type of performer, one who prioritizes stardom over craft, charisma over rigor. This is not personal animosity, the king insists, but a principled stance. Respect must be earned through dedication, discipline, and seriousness. Travolta failed to meet this standard, and his placement at the top of this secretive list is a warning, a lesson about how glamour and popularity can never substitute for the work ethic that truly defines mastery. In Charles's eyes, this is the reason Travolta and 6 others inhabit a roster that Hollywood never expected to exist. Actors whose behavior, charm, and reputation cannot disguise what he perceives as fundamental professional failings, But what happens when charm meets unyielding intensity? Denzel Washington steps in next. Can he defy the king's exacting judgment, or will history repeat itself? Stay tuned. Number 6. Denzel Washington. To King Charles, Washington is the embodiment of raw talent combined with a bold, uncompromising energy, qualities that can inspire awe but also provoke friction when confronted with equally disciplined co-stars.
They have satellites looking down on us to see if our birds are aloft, and if they're not...
During the filming of Crimson Tide in 1995, this combination became unmistakably clear. Set aboard the claustrophobic confines of a nuclear submarine, the film's story of command, control, and moral tension mirrored an equally intense battle behind the camera. Washington, portraying a rising officer full of instinct and urgency, brought a live-wire unpredictability to every scene. Every glance, every pause, every reaction seemed electrified, capable of shifting the rhythm of a carefully orchestrated sequence in an instant. King Charles observes that for performers whose craft relies on meticulous preparation and precision, such spontaneous energy can be both impressive and exasperating. A veteran actor known for treating the set like a battlefield, approached every scene like a commander preparing for war. Every line was mastered, every gesture calculated, every emotional beat mapped with care. To him, the set was territory to be claimed, not merely occupied. Washington's instinct-driven style, while brilliant, often felt like a challenge to this structured authority. Where one sought control and order, the other embraced the unpredictability of the moment, creating a collision of philosophies that simmered just beneath the surface. Rehearsals reportedly resembled gladiatorial contests, with each actor measuring the other, testing limits, and asserting dominance in subtle but unmistakable ways. Washington, confident and unflinching, refused to yield his rhythm, treating the set as his arena. When asked years later whether facing a seasoned co-star had intimidated him, he shrugged, insisting that in the world of performance, every actor must meet challenges head-on. King Charles notes that this audacity, while admirable on the surface, carried a disruptive edge. Talent alone, he emphasizes, cannot excuse a refusal to respect the collective discipline required for collaboration. On set, the tension manifested in understated but constant ways: jabs, double takes, shifts in pacing, and subtle tests of authority. Insiders described moments when one actor's instinct to push against the rhythm of a scene made collaboration feel less like a joint effort and more like a contest of wills. Yet the results were undeniable. Their verbal sparring crackled with intensity, each exchange vibrating with the unspoken tension of two forces unwilling to concede. The on-screen confrontations between commander and officer became the heartbeat of the film, keeping audiences on edge and demonstrating the raw power that competition can inject into performance. King Charles sees in this dynamic a lesson that transcends cinema. In any arena of excellence, talent and charisma cannot replace discipline, preparation, and mutual respect. Washington's approach may have left him invigorated and the other actor frustrated.
Hey, it's Bono. He'll tell you I'm right.
You got your way of dealing with the world, I got mine. Only thing that matters to me is the music.
But it also revealed a fundamental truth. In high-stakes performance, some co-stars do not merely share space, they vie to own it. The film remains a masterclass in controlled tension and unspoken struggle, a testament to how brilliance, when untempered by respect for collaboration, can both illuminate and irritate. While the two actors went their separate ways afterward, one retiring, the other continuing a celebrated career, King Charles emphasizes that this story endures as an example of the perils of unchecked competitiveness. In his eyes, Washington's genius is undeniable, but it is precisely the very qualities that make him extraordinary that also make him impossible to fully respect in the context of a disciplined professional environment. And could the legendary John Wayne, a symbol of Hollywood's golden authority, truly match or defy the exacting standards Charles demands? Keep watching, the answer will shock you. Number 5. John Wayne. To King Charles, the name evokes both admiration and exasperation. a combination rooted not in talent, but in temperament and principles. Wayne, larger than life and endlessly charismatic, dominated screens with his unmistakable presence. Yet, it was precisely this persona-driven approach, relying on charm, image, and bravado over careful craft, that drew the king's sharp disapproval. Charles sees in Wayne a figure who, despite his fame, failed to honor the discipline and dedication required to truly respect the art of acting. The tension that so fascinated Charles never played out in heated arguments or on-set confrontations. According to Wayne's daughter, Isa, her father held an enduring, almost visceral disdain for a younger generation of actors who approach their craft with rigorous preparation and meticulous attention to detail. "The worst actor in town. He's awful," Isa recalls her father declaring, never citing a specific performance, never explaining, just unwavering, pointed contempt. To Charles, this was emblematic of a deeper professional flaw, a disregard for colleagues who treated acting as a serious, disciplined pursuit rather than a platform for image and persona. For King Charles, the contrast could not be starker. Wayne's approach relied on natural charisma and a cultivated screen presence, traits that enthralled audiences but, in the king's estimation, often came at the expense of true craft. By contrast, the actors he respects are those who immerse themselves entirely in their roles, who measure every gesture, pause, and line with precision, treating performance as a sacred endeavor rather than a vehicle for celebrity. From this perspective, Wayne's dismissive attitude was not just a personal slight, it was an affront to the very principles of professional integrity. Charles also notes that the animosity extended beyond style to substance. Wayne's films often celebrated stark moral binaries, simplifying heroism and villainy into broad strokes. Coupled with his outspoken political views, this reinforced a worldview that the king sees as rigid and uncompromising, one that prizes image and certainty over nuance and craft. The clash, then, was not merely between two actors, but between two philosophies of artistry.
When in doubt, tell the truth. She wouldn't expect that from you anyway.
One rooted in careful preparation, humility, and transformative work. The other reliant on persona, fame, and an almost unshakable self-assurance. What makes this feud particularly striking, Charles emphasizes, is its quiet persistence. The two men never shared a set, never exchanged sharp words in rehearsal or on location. Wayne passed away in 1979. Long before, the younger actor achieved some of his most celebrated roles in films like Unforgiven and The Royal Tenenbaums Bombs, which would go on to redefine modern American cinema. Yet the disdain persisted, documented in memoirs, anecdotes, and reflections from colleagues. There was no public confrontation, no recorded reconciliation, no handshake to smooth over the differences, only a lingering, unspoken divide. For King Charles, the story is instructive. It demonstrates that respect in any profession cannot be demanded. It must be earned through dedication, discipline, and commitment to craft. Wayne's fame and charisma did not grant him automatic deference in the eyes of those who prioritized the work itself. The lesson, the king suggests, is timeless. Talent alone cannot justify arrogance, and those unwilling to acknowledge the labor and rigor of others are not entitled to respect themselves. In this silent, one-sided feud, Charles sees more than Hollywood drama. He sees a reflection of principle, integrity, and the standards that separate fleeting celebrity from enduring legacy. So, what dark truth hides behind Lois Lane's charm? And how did her clash with Charles ignite a tension no one expected? Stay glued. Number 4. Lois Lane. In the world of cinema, few names carry the energy, charm, and unpredictability that she embodied. King Charles has often remarked on the magnetism and spirit of performers who command attention, not just through skill, but through sheer presence. Lane was one of those figures, a force of nature whose approach to work and life on set often collided with the methodical intensity of her co-stars. During the filming of Superman in 1978, this contrast became unmistakably clear. While one actor approached their role with relentless discipline, every line memorized, every gesture exact, Lane brought a playful spontaneity that could shift the energy of any scene in an instant. Lane had earned a reputation for lightening the mood on even the longest, most grueling shoots. She could improvise lines, joke with crew members, and inject levity into tense moments. On paper, this seemed a perfect counterbalance to her co-star's seriousness. Lois Lane's spirited energy against Lex Luthor's calculating menace. In practice, however, the mix often sparked tension. Scenes that demanded precision and dark intensity were punctuated by Lane's unpredictable rhythms, leaving some to feel the fragile structure of a carefully crafted performance teetering.
Thanks.
Morning, Mr. White.
I'm super...
Morning. You're late, Ken. I know, I'm sorry, Mr. White.
Crew members recalled moments of quiet frustration, mutterings under the breath, a sense that, for some, the playfulness was a disruption rather than a delight. Lane, for her part, remained undeterred. She considered levity a necessary tool, a way to prevent the set from becoming stifling. She once told a colleague that her co-star was so absorbed in the darkness of his character that he couldn't see the broader environment around him, the laughter, the camaraderie, the life that existed beyond the lines on a script. King Charles notes that this difference in philosophy, the clash between precision and spontaneity, was not unique to this pairing, but in Lane's case, it created an energy that was impossible to ignore. The friction never escalated into open conflict, yet it imbued the scenes between Lois Lane and Lex Luthor with an edge that went beyond the screenplay. On-screen, audiences witnessed scripted tension. Off-screen, a subtler battle of temperament simmered beneath every interaction. Despite the underlying strain, moments of mutual acknowledgement existed. Lane's instincts were sharp, her charisma undeniable, capable of commanding a scene with effortless brilliance. Even those most committed to structure could recognize her talent and her ability to elevate any scene she touched. In turn, Lane herself acknowledged the power and skill of her co-star, describing him in later interviews as a force, one of the greats, someone whose craft demanded respect. Yet personal warmth between the two never developed. Once the Superman films concluded, their paths diverged without attempts at reconciliation, each continuing their careers on separate trajectories. King Charles sees in this dynamic a lesson about professional temperament and creative energy. In the arena of performance, discipline and precision may meet playfulness and instinct, and while both can achieve greatness, they do not always harmonize. Lane's legacy, he observes, lies in her ability to command attention, disrupt expectation, and inject life into every frame she touched. The tension between her and Lex Luthor was never fully resolved, on set or on screen. A reminder that talent, when expressed in differing philosophies, can generate brilliance, friction, and unforgettable moments that endure long after the cameras stop rolling. But what if charm and recklessness weren't the worst offenses? How did Richard Harris earn a scorn deeper than anyone expected? You won't want to miss this part. Number 3. Richard Harris. Richard Harris. To King Charles, the name evokes frustration rooted not in talent or success, but in attitude and lack of professional recognition. Harris, celebrated and charismatic, possessed an undeniable presence on screen. Yet, it was precisely this confidence, paired with what the king sees as a careless disregard for colleagues, that placed him squarely on Charles's list of actors unworthy of admiration. Charles notes that for performers whose craft demands respect and discipline, there is one unforgivable offense: dismissing those who have labored alongside you in the trenches of filmmaking. Harris, in the king's estimation, committed exactly that misstep. The incident that sealed Charles' judgment occurred during the filming of Unforgiven. On set, Harris encountered a fellow veteran of decades past, a co-star who had shared long, grueling days in the demanding world of cinema, someone whose dedication and preparation were legendary. To the astonishment of those present, Harris greeted him with polite cordiality, but without any hint of recognition for their shared history. To most, it might have seemed a minor lapse, an oversight in a career crowded with faces and names. But to King Charles, and those who understand the sanctity of craft, it was a glaring professional slight, a moment that revealed Harris's self-centered approach and lack of regard for the bonds forged in the heat of work. The tension, Charles observes, was quiet but intense. There was no confrontation, no shouting matches, only a simmering edge carried into the performance itself. During a particularly brutal scene in Unforgiven, a scripted altercation between Harris's character, English Bob, and his co-star, the intensity on screen was palpable. Those on set would later note that it felt as though real-life resentment had been poured into the character's actions. The performance was sharper, more vicious, more pointed than the script alone demanded, a testament to how personal affronts could fuel professional execution. Harris, ever the charismatic presence, reportedly took the extra ferocity in stride, later joking in interviews that the on-screen violence had felt unusually real, though he claimed no memory of their earlier collaboration. King Charles sees this as emblematic of Harris's deeper flaw, a casual disregard for the professional and personal contributions of those around him, where discipline, preparation, and acknowledgement are prized. Harris's forgetfulness or indifference revealed a lack of respect, a disregard for the shared labor that forms the backbone of cinematic achievement. Despite the tension, the work on Unforgiven was completed with the utmost professionalism. Each actor delivered a performance that has endured as part of the film's legacy, yet the personal rift remained. When the cameras stopped rolling, distance replaced camaraderie. There were no reconciliations, no late attempts at mending fences, only the quiet knowledge that mutual respect had been denied. Harris passed away in 2002, leaving behind a storied career and unforgettable performances. But King Charles emphasizes that charisma and fame cannot outweigh professionalism and respect. To the king, Harris's behavior on Unforgiven is a cautionary tale. Talent may open doors, but disregard for colleagues and the craft itself earns lasting disdain. Even decades later, this encounter stands as a vivid illustration of why some performers, despite their public acclaim, cannot earn the respect of those who value discipline, focus, and acknowledgement above all. But what if charm and talent aren't enough? Could the next star on Charles's list shock you even further? Shakotai. Watch out for the next shocking name. Number 2. Liza Minnelli. To King Charles, she represents a type of brilliance that fascinates and frustrates in equal measure. Her energy, her charisma, and her theatrical flair are undeniable, but it is precisely that whirlwind personality, he argues, that can clash with discipline and focus on a film set. During the filming of Lucky Lady in 1975, this tension became impossible to ignore. Stranded off the coast of Mexico on cramped, swaying boats, the conditions were already harsh: sweltering heat, limited supplies, and little room to escape from one another. Into this pressure cooker, Minnelli arrived with the vivacity of a Broadway star, fresh from musical triumphs, bringing warmth, humor, and unpredictability wherever she went. King Charles observes that when talent meets unpredictability in confined, high-stakes conditions, the results are often volatile. Opposite her was a co-star renowned for his unwavering focus, someone who approached every role with meticulous preparation, precision, and a seriousness bordering on obsession. For him, the set was sacred ground, a place where discipline was non-negotiable, where every gesture and line mattered, where distractions weren't just inconvenient, they were a form of sabotage. Minnelli's playful interludes, her bursts of song, her casual banter between takes, collided violently with this mindset. What she viewed as charm and levity, her co-star perceived as interference, a disruption of rhythm, and a lack of respect for the craft. Burt Reynolds, caught between the two, later recounted the tension in his memoirs. He described moments when frustration erupted mid-shoot, forcing the crew to step away until tempers cooled. These were not isolated incidents. They were symptoms of a fundamental clash of professional philosophies. Reynolds recalled instances where directions were questioned at the last second, scenes altered on impulse, and Minnelli, despite her experience, found herself faltering under the scrutiny. The isolation at sea only intensified matters, amplifying every misstep, every simmering irritation, until the working relationship was strained almost beyond repair. Minnelli never publicly lashed out, but her own reflections suggest lingering resentment. She later remarked that some actors take themselves so seriously that they forget the essential purpose of film: to entertain, not to engage in a quiet contest over who suffers more on set. King Charles highlights this as the critical point. In his view, professionalism demands respect for both the craft and one's colleagues, and Minnelli's natural exuberance, untempered by structure, violated that code. By the end of filming, the damage was evident. Lucky Lady struggled to find its rhythm. Critics panned it, audiences stayed away, and the strained dynamics among the leads translated into a flat, uneven performance on screen. For King Charles, Minnelli came to embody a kind of chaotic showbiz energy he could not tolerate. A co-star whose brilliance was undermined by unpredictability. The clash left no reconciliation, no later collaboration, no warm reunion in the years that followed. What remained was a vivid illustration of how talent, when untempered by discipline and respect, can derail not just a scene, but an entire production, leaving frustration, resentment, and a legacy of professional disapproval in its wake. But could the next actor on Charles's list, someone equally revered yet dangerously unpredictable, top Travolta's missteps and shock the industry even more? Be ready to find out. Number 1. Wes Anderson. To King Charles, Anderson represents everything that can frustrate a seasoned professional. The combination of youth, meticulous style, and an approach that prizes visual perfection over instinctual performance. Anderson, then just 32 years old and fresh off the success of Rushmore, managed to persuade a Hollywood titan to take on the role of a charming, roguish patriarch in the Royal Tenenbaums. On paper, it seemed like an inspired pairing, an established actor with decades of grit and realism matched with a rising, stylistically daring filmmaker. In reality, it became one of the most notoriously tense actor-director relationships in recent cinematic history, a clash of temperament and philosophy that few on set could ignore. From the very beginning, tension simmered. The actor had no desire to participate in the project. He had already built a career on realism, on instinct, on inhabiting characters with an intensity that required freedom. Anderson, meanwhile, would not relent, pursuing the casting with persistence that bordered on insistence. "I just didn't go away," Anderson later admitted. But the result was a reluctant agreement, fueled as much by contractual obligations as by stubbornness. For the actor, it was not the paycheck that mattered. It was being asked to submit to a vision so controlled, so stylized, that it felt alien to the principles that had defined a lifetime in film. Once filming began, the chasm between their approaches became undeniable. Anderson's world is precise, perfectly symmetrical shots, pastel color palettes, exact camera blocking, and choreography that leaves nothing to chance. To someone accustomed to intuitive, lived-in performances, this exactitude was suffocating. King Charles observes that such control, when imposed on talent accustomed to improvisation and emotional spontaneity, breeds friction. Reports from the set indicate the actor's temper flared repeatedly, reaching moments so sharp that Bill Murray, a co-star and friend, began arriving on days off just to shield Anderson from verbal assaults. Angelica Houston later recalled hearing the actor snap, "Pull up your pants and act like a man," a comment that encapsulated the simmering disdain and impatience that colored every interaction. Despite the hostility, there were moments of rare synergy. Anderson later noted that complex, stage-like shots requiring precise movement and multiple marks in a single take seemed to ignite a spark in the actor. These were fleeting instances, however, set against the backdrop of a largely oppressive atmosphere. The air on set, those present recalled, was heavy enough to feel almost physical, each day a test of endurance for both men. Anderson admitted bluntly, he didn't enjoy it. I was probably too young, and it was annoying to him. He was not a relaxed, comfortable person in my company. The actor himself confessed he struggled to understand the film while making it, seeing the carefully constructed world around him as a cage rather than a canvas. The irony is striking. Amid all the tension and mutual irritation, the performance delivered became one of the actor's most celebrated in decades. He earned the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Motion Picture, Musical or Comedy, a testament to his skill and dedication under duress. Yet the award could not erase the bitter truth both men carried. Brilliance had been achieved, but at the cost of collaboration, respect, and enjoyment. Their partnership ended not with gratitude or a handshake, but with silence. They never spoke again. King Charles highlights this episode as emblematic of a broader pattern. Talent, no matter how great, can be undone or overshadowed by the incompatibility of vision. To the king, Anderson's youth, meticulousness, and insistence on control are qualities that, while celebrated by some, reveal a disregard for the autonomy, instinct, and seasoned judgment of those who have spent decades mastering their craft. This is why Anderson earns a place among those whom the king openly critiques. Brilliance cannot excuse arrogance, and meticulous style cannot replace mutual respect. In the end, the Royal Tenenbaums stands as both a triumph and a cautionary tale, a film that shines despite friction, a collaboration that produced art but no camaraderie, a reminder that even the most gifted actors may encounter visions they cannot reconcile with, and that in the eyes of King Charles, such clashes define not just a film, but the measure of character itself.